shows actually, because in the foyer there's Index.4, which has been curated by Luke Harvey, so that's a different set of work to this set of work. So you get to. But Izzy, I met Izzy doing the printmaking MA in Camberwell, and she's always had an interest in mythology and illustration, storytelling, and this is her first solo show, so I'll just hand over to Izzy to carry on.
It might be interesting to say actually that I've brought along some fine artists, some painters and drawers, and some third-year illustrators as well.
Okay, that is good to know. Thanks for coming, everyone. I'm going to try not to look at notes too much, it's just to remind me of stuff, so sorry for being rude. So, as Pauline was saying, I've always been interested in mythology. My practice in general kind of started off with printmaking on my BA. I studied graphic design at Camberwell. And I did a project about adaptations, and it was kind of based on the idea of the visual aspect of stories being adapted, so through film and theatre and illustration. And I created a series of etchings of that project. And then since then I've been printing on textiles quite a lot. So that was what I was doing on the intervening period between doing my BA and my MA. So printing on canvas, making wall hangings, and then also making sort of more designy printed items. And then I wanted to get back to doing fine art printmaking, so I went to Camberwell. And I started experimenting with really large scale printing there because the facilities enabled that, whereas previously I wasn't able to do that. So I was doing large scale lithography and monoprinting. So my final project at Camberwell was a big sort of frieze-like landscape. I think it was 10 metres long. And that was made up of images that was sort of, they weren't illustrating a story, but it was based on a book called Fremder by Russell Hoban, who's a sci-fi writer. And the images were quite sort of abstract landscapes, and it was all to do with time in a landscape and how different kinds of time exist in one landscape. So that's what I've been doing previously, and then since finishing that a few years ago, I've got my own studio in Woolwich, and I've been making work for various exhibitions, the most recent of which is this. So one of the things that I'm really fascinated by in my work and my research is the idea of rural England. I'm from Oxfordshire, and it's the idea of the sort of pastoral combined with the industrial that I think is quite peculiarly English. This kind of weird contrast where you think it's going to be this really idyllic place, and then it's full of all these industrial ruins, which is obviously something that interests quite a lot of fine artists right now. But it's something that I sort of grown up in. So yeah, I grew up in Oxfordshire, and so there's a lot of nuclear power stations, cement factories, that kind of thing. So I've always been really interested by that contrast within the landscape. And it's something that at the moment I think is quite important, not really to document, just to think about as a person who makes landscape art, because a lot of those monuments are disappearing. And I know a lot of people might think, you know, it's just local rubbish, it's not a factory or something, but I think there's something that really speaks to sort of history of England and rural England particularly within those structures, and old farming machinery and old rubbish that's been left in fields. So that was something that I was really interested in, and also quarries, because I grew up near a quarry that is Jurassic period, kind of has that sort of layering in it, and it's a site of special scientific interest, so it has this combination of ancient history and contemporary industry, and then now it's a ruin, so then what does that really say about it as a modern place? So yeah, I'm interested in that. And also fiction and story and narrative, that's really played into my work. So I usually will start off with a book or a film or just an idea that I've kind of absorbed from lots of different narratives. So for example, with this project, I started off kind of thinking about the river and the Thames Riverside in London, And then a narrative that sprang up around that was another book by Russell Hoban called The Medusa Frequency, which I became really interested in, predominantly because I started reading it, and you know, when you start thinking about something and then it's everywhere. So I started reading this book and then suddenly I was seeing stuff from the book everywhere. So I was on the tube and the book was talking about going through Fulham Broadway Station, and I was going through Fulham Broadway Station at the same time. And then I was walking down the street in Fulham and someone had written Medusa on the pavement in chalk. So it's all this kind of weird, coincidental stuff. I was like, well, I've got to use this. So I started kind of, I sort of started off with doing a lot of drawing, observation, photography, and then I take that into the printmaking studio and I work with a narrative, but it's not really, I wouldn't say it's really illustrating the story. For me it's very important, that's where it's come from, but then I think like the details I've put on the catalogue is kind of as much as I need the general audience to know about where it's come from. So I'm really interested in the idea of the transference of fiction onto the real life world that we each experience. You know, real, well, I'll leave you to interpret that as you want to, but you know, the corporeal world that I experience. So I feel that because of the way that I consume fiction, I think I have a sort of unhealthy relationship with film and books in that they kind of seep into reality, and I thought it would be interesting to produce a landscape that was how I kind of see it, which is a combination of what is real and what is fictional. And I think that there are certain places that evoke that, and places that are really famous for it, so like Dungeness, I did a project about, which is sort of a famously dystopian kind of landscape, and I think that there are just those places that have that kind of liminal sense to them that people are drawn to. And one of the places that I feel like that about is the Thames Riverside, which is very near my studio. I'm down in Woolwich. So I love the idea of stories being retold over and over again, and that sort of mutation. And I think that you emphasise certain aspects of the story as a storyteller, and I think that through creating my own version of it visually, I'm kind of continuing that tradition of mythology and storytelling, because I'm sort of cherry picking and then I'm giving that back out to people as a new version of that story. So I kind of, not to like pick myself up, but I see myself as sort of carrying on in the tradition of other people who are telling stories. And I get like everyone who does anything creative is part of that tradition. And I think also the thing that I love about mythology is that the stories aren't owned by anyone, and they exist in the world. They're sort of uncontained, and they become their own sort of entity, and they sort of live and breathe in their own way. And that was what these landscapes were all about, is that I thought what would happen if you had a myth that just broke out of fiction and broke into the real world. So the myth that I was working with was the myth of Orpheus' death. So the most famous myth about him is Orpheus in Eurydice, where he goes down into the underworld to try and retrieve Eurydice, who's dead. Doesn't succeed in the end because he essentially has a bit of a problem with hubris, which is why he eventually dies, because the gods are angered by him thinking that he's as good as them. So he's torn into pieces by some angry women, and they throw his body parts into the river, and they're carried down the river, down to the sea. And I just found something kind of really deliciously horrible about this, and that's what I love about mythology, is that it's kind of, you know, it's all fine until someone thinks that they're a god, and then it's not fine anymore. So I sort of wanted to transfer that story into this Thames Riverside landscape, using that as the River Thames sort of acting as this ancient river where the story had taken place. So the way that I figured that I could make this fictional place sort of come out of the real place was the way that I usually approach making my work, which is I'll do quite kind of sketchy observational drawings. I've got a sketchbook I can show you at the end. And then I'll just break that image down over and over again using pen and ink and using paint. So I use gouache and acrylic just on bits of cardboard or paper or anything, and just kind of take everything down to the most basic shape of it, and to the point where I'll be looking at a photograph of the place that I'm studying and I will see it in elements. And I think that's really useful as a printmaker because of the process of layering and creating plates, to be able to see an image separated into what you need to do as a sort of technician in the studio is really useful. And the way that I've kind of trained myself to do that is through the process of breaking it down. And also through that sort of breaking down and repeating of it, that kind of works with my theory as well about repeating the story and making it your own. So it all kind of has a medium of specificity that I feel I need in printmaking, because I think it's very tempting to use printmaking as like a visually pleasing way of resolving a project. And I think that the best printmaking that I really love, the printmaker has been in the studio and they've been working through their ideas in the studio and on the press, and that's kind of what brings it together. It's not like you thought, oh, this is a nice picture and then I'm going to then print it and then that's like a final project. But you know, that's the way I work, everyone's different. So going back to the idea of narrative in these images, the Russell Hoban book, The Medusa Frequency, that I was reading, in this book there's a writer who can't write anymore, so he summons the head of Orpheus, obviously, from the underworld to come and help him. And then he finds this manky cabbage on the street, he picks it up and it turns into the head of Orpheus. And then he goes to the caprice and orders a grapefruit and that turns into the head of Orpheus. And he finds a football. Like, he keeps finding these kind of head-ish objects and they turn into a head, and it's not, never really says to him whether he's mad or this is what he actually has made happen through his lack of creativity. Like, things have just started coming out of the underworld into his reality. And so I use that as this kind of basis of thinking, like, what objects are there within the Thames landscape that I think were kind of parts of Orpheus that were coming, like, rising to the surface. So I was looking at stuff like old bike wheels and shopping trolleys and just bits of wood and just kind of lumpish shapes that I would see sort of coming out of the mud, and thinking about how that could be interpreted in a different way. So again, that's kind of looking at the landscape as narrative, because I then interpreted it into these shapes. And so when you look at the titles of these works on the handout that's in the foyer, some of them kind of speak a little bit more about maybe what parts they are, but most of the sculptural pieces here are kind of representative of the body parts, and then, that sounds really sinister, but just like the parts of the person that the story is about. And then the landscape prints are more kind of that landscape from which those have been torn and pulled. So a lot of the pieces of paper are the bits that are in the sculptural pieces, are bits that I've used for the monoprinting process. And I've always really wanted to use the bits that are left over from monoprinting, because you get these great textures and shapes and colours, and I just kind of decided to use them in this way. So I think there's something, they are of the prints, but they aren't part of the prints anymore. They've been taken out and they've become their own sort of creatures. I think one of the reasons I was so drawn to the river as the main starting point for this project was the fact that rivers are both the oldest landmarks in the city, but also the newest, because they're just constantly changing. And I think it's this really special place where you have ancient time and modern time coexisting, and especially where I'm based in Woolwich, it's quite kind of has quite a gruesome history as like where slave ships would come in and where they'd go out, and there's still the Tate and Lyle factory opposite where my studio is. And I think there's quite a kind of, there's a lot of these buildings in London that are kind of bloodied by England's history, and you just kind of look at them like they're part of their landscape, but there's something, I think there is this kind of chilling undercurrent to all of these places, and that's why it kind of has this frisson, as the Thames has this definite feel, especially like those sort of industrial edgelands. I think that's something that's been documented really well by lots of other artists that I really admire. So there was this book called The New English Landscape that came out a couple of years ago. I can't remember the name of it. The writer was Ken Walpole, who writes really well about the English landscape, and then it was a photographer whose name I can't remember. But anyway, if you're interested in stuff like this, then that's a good one. And also the printmaker Cristiano Baumgartner did a project called Medway that was these really gorgeous woodcuts of some like shipwrecks in the river, and they're sort of almost photographic, and the detail are really fantastic. And there was this exhibition called Estuary at the London Museum in Docklands, and there were loads of artists in that who did really great stuff to do with rivers. So, there's a good resource for that on the London Museum Docklands website. So if you're interested in that, like the space of the river as a kind of source for artists, then that's a good place to go. So I think essentially with these pieces I was kind of mudlarking on the riverbanks and finding these weird objects and thinking all these thoughts about fiction, and then just taking all of that kind of mass of research into the studio, and for quite a long time like really kind of struggling to find a way to visualise it, because there were so many kind of textures and layers to all of this research that I was doing, and it's really difficult because I can't stand in front of a piece of work for every single person that looks at it and tell them the whole backstory, and I don't even want to, because that would just destroy the point of it. So I ended up using car random as a process. I don't know if
Yeah.
okay, cool. Well, it's fun, and it looks like it. When you look at car random prints, so Gillian Ayres does really stunning car random prints. They look so difficult because the way that hers are done, and Howard Hodgkin as well, so much layering and precision, and there's just a kind of mania for separating things into different colours and using 50 colours, and the prints are like this big. And so I started looking at it and I thought, oh god, this is going to be awful and really difficult, and then I just kind of figured it out and had a go. So basically, so this is the plate, this print here, and also the print around that corner that's dark green and pale pink. So I did use a lot of plates over and over again for this show, so you see throughout it, stuff is kind of semi-recognisable. So I mixed the car random grip with gesso and then painted onto grey board. People usually use metal or plastic or matte board. But my studio is next to a framers and they're throwing out my grey board, and I thought that'd be interesting to try it, because with metal and plastic, if this is what you're into, then you can paint the car random on, and then around it you can just wipe it totally clean, so you'll have sort of painted marks on a clean background. But that's not what I wanted, so I kind of used more and more textured substances, and then got a grey board, and I thought, yeah, that's nice and textured. So on this bit here, that actually, I didn't ink up that area, but you still got this kind of dot, which is just where the board has taken up the ink a little bit. So yeah, you put on the gesso and the car random, paint it on whatever you want your image to be, and then varnish it a few times to seal it, and then you ink it up like it's an etching plate, and then put it through the press with damp paper. Doesn't work so well on damp paper. So yeah, that was basically the process that I ended up using, but then I kind of started using it in different ways, so that was the basic way. And all of these, there's a layer of monoprint underneath, and then some of them have another layer of monoprint over the top, or like several layers of the carbon plate, and some of them are printed with the plate inked up, and then I printed it again afterwards after the ink had already been taken off the plate. So, for example, these two here, the lighter image on the left was, I'm just trying to get this the right way around. So the image on the right, I monoprinted the green layer, and then I printed the orange carborundum layer on top, and then because of it being wet on wet, the carborundum plate takes up some of the green. So the light green tone and the orange on the one on the left, that's purely just what's been left on the plate. And then I added another element with the dark green blob. There was just a bit of, I used like florist cellophane by Ruby Bronzer, so that's what I used for my painting this time. Because you can just ink up pieces of that and use that as a sort of substrate. So, yeah, I'm just trying to think of this. Oh yeah, so then the large blue pieces, when I was on my MA, I was doing these really big monoprints, and I wanted to create a sort of white noise on them, and I found that the best way to do that is to ink up your plate, quite saturate it, and then put a sheet of tracing paper over it, and then just print through it, and then you get this kind of dot, which is kind of more visible on some of them than others. And then where it's kind of got those little waves in it, that's where I put the tracing paper down and then needed to pick it up again because it was in the wrong place. So you end up getting a sort of, I just really love all of those sort of paper textures, and that's when the kind of, you know, printmaking nerd gene comes in, because just really enjoying getting all those different, especially with this piece, there's four, I had to print it in 4 separate bits because I can only print A0 on my press. So yeah, just kind of getting the variation between each one, I think was quite interesting for me. And then the shapes on the top are sort of carborundum monoprints, so I've inked up the carborundum plate and then made a plastic template just put over the top like a stencil and then printed through it. But yeah, I feel that the process of carborundum really worked for me just because it's kind of got this stony, earthy texture, and it is quite sort of industrial because it's like this metal grit, but at the same time you end up with something that looks quite ethereal, and it's kind of hard to pinpoint what it is or where it's come from, and you can do all this kind of magical layering when you just get sort of like different textures laying on top of each other and really getting that feel of a landscape. So, yeah, that's it. Does anyone have any questions? Don't be shy.
Could you tell me the name of the artist that you said got many colours when you first started talking about your...
Gillian Ayres.
Oh, Gillian,
Yeah, sorry, I was pretty mumbling it.
yeah.
And Howard Hodgkin as well.
And
Howard Hodgkin. Yeah, Christiana Van Gogh did the woodcut prints. But yeah, she's one of those artists where I really love her work, but my work could not be more different. But I love it. So. And also, the other person I looked at was the Japanese photographer Hiroshi Sugimoto, who does these really long exposure prints of, he did ones of cinema screens.
Of trees and things.
Yeah,
yes.
and then he did these ones of the horizon, and it's just the
There's
sea.
tree ones.
Yeah, they're really lovely, and you know, if you like the landscape and the water, just lush. So, yeah, would recommend. Any more questions?
So did you use different grades of carborundum?
I did try some different grades, but I ended up just using the fine grade because the medium grade one, it just doesn't really pick up the ink in the same way.
Some of those, like the blacks, are so dense and like this.
Yeah, that one, that's like 5 layers, so that's why that's so black. But also, it's, yeah, the medium grade one, I think if you layered it with plates where you use fine grade, then I think you could make it work even that way, but just the main image is just a bit kind of, yeah. And that's what, because I went to Integro to buy it, and they kind of said, that's the way.
You spoke about lots of different contrasting elements when you're making the work, like industrial. traditional landscape, and also this kind of terror that underlies this such beautiful work. Are you kind of aware of those while you're working, or is it become more aware after you hang the show?
I think a lot of my work. So I don't think that this isn't really answering your question, but like a lot of people, when they talk about their work, it's quite personal, and I don't really do that. But I think from a personal perspective, I think I feel quite a lot of anxiety as a maker when I'm in the studio, and the process of actually completing an image, I think, produces quite a lot. I think that's like, you're in a constant state of anxiety, otherwise you wouldn't be making anything, you'd just be fine, and you wouldn't need to do it. And I think that a lot of that is kind of related to the anxiety that I feel as of my place in the world, and about, I think, you know, I've read too much sci-fi and I'm a bit scared of what's going to happen. And also, because I'm sort of surrounded by my drawings and paintings and photography, it's kind of always, the source material is always there. I don't really break away from the source material. I'll kind of always have the pictures on the wall when I'm drawing, or like the only time really, like when I'm on, even when I'm about to print, when I'm cutting out the shapes on monoprint, I'll have a photograph or a drawing. So I think I'm always connected with that, but maybe not. The stuff about the kind of sinister aspects of the Thames as a place, that I only really started thinking about that when the work was finished.
Right.
Because I've been reading this book called Estuary by Rachel something. That's really good anyway. I want to see her talk about it and everything. Anyway, it's a really amazing book about the history of the estuary. She lives in Leigh-on-Sea, so she did this art residency where she went on a boat all the way down through the estuary and then round to Colchester or somewhere. And a lot of that was to do with the history of shipwrecks and the fact that there are all these shipwrecks where like everyone died, like an entire massive ship full of people who were all supposed to be emigrating to somewhere, like 500 people, none of whom could swim. And because back, like the reason that all these shipwrecks happen all the time is that the sandbanks on the Thames floor move constantly, and because now there's this amazing technology that people in their boats sort of navigate it, but back then, like one day it would be safe and the next day it would be treacherous to go through that area. And I think the Thames is a kind of treacherous presence in London because there is this kind of, it's not safe, there's no safety to it, and it never has had that. I don't know. Has that answered anything?
Yeah. It's just that they've resolved to be really aesthetically beautiful, aren't they? They're very.
Well, I think that's what.
With this underlying kind of.
Yeah, I think that's how I feel about England, though, and about England visually and historically, and just what our place. I say that, like, I don't know. I don't define myself as being English, but it just happens to be who I am. But just the place that England has in the world as this kind of, I suppose, like a sort of violent superpower is what we used to be, and now we're just this kind of pathetic country. I don't know. I just think that there's a kind of anxiety that I feel about that. The idea of England is an anxious place, and it's beautiful but bad. Yeah. So I think that's true of a lot of really stunning landscapes around. I think that'd be true of landscape artists in any country. You know, people from the desert, like it's a really beautiful place, but then very dangerous. So yeah, I guess that's just the nature of the beast.